What up, Kat Kingdom? Happy New Year! I am so excited to be kicking off season 6 of Cat on the Loose with a guest that I adore. His work is incredible. I've been wanting to have him on the show forever, and I think it's a perfect person to help us start the year having better relationships, better sex, and all around just doing better. Todd, good morning. It's such an honor having you here.
Good morning. Hi, it's good to see you.
Happy New Year.
I know, 2026. Pretty
Right?
crazy.
I know, I can't believe it. I have so many questions for you, so if you're ready, let's just rock and roll.
Yeah.
I want to start with a post you did on your social media. And I mean, I love your posts. By the way, guys, if you don't know his work, go check it out on Instagram. The account is 𝐬𝐿_nonsense, which is perfect because you are like 100% no nonsense. But this one I really love, and there is so much in there. So I want to talk about it for a second. You wrote, I want a relationship where we fuck like animals and communicate like adults. I mean, there is so much in there, right? Because first, and you tell me if you agree with me or not, I think most people, especially in the American culture, have massive problems when it comes to asking for what they want in their sex lives. I think a lot of people are very uptight. And communicating. Why is it such a big deal for so many people to communicate openly with whoever it is that they're dating or in a relationship with?
I mean, well, communication is just simply how we share ourselves, right? I mean, so if we're talking about sex, if we're talking about what we want to eat for dinner, what our coffee order is, you know, someone is not going to know us. We're not going to get our needs met. Our bodies won't be cared for. And we may have an allergic reaction and go into anaphylactic shock if we don't say, you know, I'm allergic to nuts, or I don't like it when you call me this, or fuck me harder. So we have to communicate. We have to, I mean, at a very basic level, I think, and hope that everybody knows this. But the challenge is that we can know this on the one hand and yet become so activated, triggered, reactive, whatever, by a dynamic in a relationship that we become anxious to the point where we shut down, forget how to communicate, withhold, don't ask in a specific way that may guarantee that we would actually receive what we're asking for. So there's a lot of emotion that gets in the way of us communicating. And so it's really important to understand that. People often want to just like work on their communication skills. But what they're not really understanding is it's not about finding the better, I mean, it is, yes, about finding better language, blah, blah, blah. But oftentimes, the challenge people have with communication isn't about the words. It isn't about the language either. It's about what stops them from connecting, finding, using the right language that would be helpful to facilitate the conversations that they want to have.
Oh my God, that is so true. So let me ask you a question. Me as an example. I love to communicate. I'm like super open. When I'm in a relationship, I just tell the person like, this is what I want, la la la. And every single person I've ever dated, they all say to me the same thing. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're just so open. I can't believe you just communicate everything you want to say. And it always surprises me that people say that, you know, coming from men. And I realize, especially men that have been married, right, going through divorce, they are so afraid of communicating and speaking their mind, whatever it is, whether it's about sex or needs, la, 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 la. Do you have any pointers in terms of like, how do you become less afraid and more open to just speaking your mind? Because I cannot imagine being in a relationship without communicating well.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, the real challenge is that some people are afraid and anxious about communication and they don't even know that they are. That it just shows up as withdrawal or a shutdown, or we don't need to talk about this, or do we always have to talk about this? But really, any kind of avoidance of communication isn't just like, this feels uncomfortable and so I'm not going to do it. It's, I don't want to, don't know how to, it freaks me out. It's an unconscious expression of shame. So the challenge is that many people don't even know that they're afraid of communicating, don't know how to communicate, etc. So we really have to be open to questioning and reflecting on ourselves to really even get to the place where we're like, okay, how am I going to communicate better? Especially for men, because men grew up, you know, learning that being vulnerable, talking about feelings, not only was it bad, but it just wasn't an option. And so that's why a lot of men really struggle to even connect with themselves and to even be able to say what they're feeling, because it's just really not been an option for them to even register feeling in that deep way that some of us do. So again, a lot of the stuff with communication isn't as simple like here's the line to use. The line's a tool, but the tool isn't going to help you chisel away at anything if you don't even know what you're chiseling at. So we need to know what the material is that we're working with, and then we need to use the chisel. So again, you know, it comes from doing these two things. One, self-reflection, developing self-awareness, blah, 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 and then practicing what you learn in that self-awareness with a person.
Yeah, you always mention that everybody would benefit from doing therapy.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but that's also another big taboo for a lot of people, especially men. I know that a lot of men that don't know how to communicate or have issues having a good relationship or even talking about what they want in bed, and then you say, let's go to therapy, right? I have a lot of girlfriends who are married and their husbands just refuse because they think, you know, there's something wrong with me if I go to therapy. Is there a way that we can break the stigma, actually convince someone that it can be a great idea if you are having issues in your relationship, if you can't communicate what you want with your partner?
Yeah, I mean, the stigma still exists. I remember when I was growing up, it was actual stigma. Like, people would actually say, you know, therapy is for crazy people, therapy is only if you're weak, or, you know, is shameful. And now, at least culturally, that it's more accepted and people are encouraged to go. But that same kind of value, nonetheless, that people grow up with, it's not like that just disappears because culture changes. So that stigma around mental health, around therapy, around getting help, even around medications, you know, it still exists. I mean, you can't force anyone to do anything. You can really just normalize, encourage, you know, talk about where values come from and why they're not necessarily right. And I mean, but beyond trying to convince somebody, which
that's the tough one, right?
Yeah, isn't always the most helpful road to go down. You know, I think that the real focus is just on ourselves.
Yeah, oh my God, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. So it's 2026.
Right.
You did a really cool post. Let's stop doing this in 2026. So I want to go over a few of these because they're so important. For example, stop calling everyone toxic or a narcissist. Yeah, lately there's a lot of that out there. But how do we know, is there a way, or I mean, how do you know that, am I really dating a narcissist? Am I really dating a toxic person before you call them that, before you make a mistake?
Well, I mean, in writing that, I wasn't suggesting that people remove the word toxic or narcissist out of the language that they use, but more so to reflect on what the label implies for them. You know, so often we're really talking about, when people talk about narcissism, the conversation's usually around who the other person is, what they did that makes them a narcissist or toxic, their behavior, why, how terrible it is, how evil it is, how whatever. As opposed to, how does their narcissism impact me? How does their personality hurt me? How did I get to the place where I was deeply attached to somebody who is potentially narcissistic or who has narcissistic traits or woundings that hurt me? So it's more so to shift away from a discussion or analyzing of other people, and more so to shift back on ourselves about what our experience is of those other people. And our experience isn't, they gaslit me. The experience is, I was gaslit and it made me question myself, and that parallels the ways in which my family still gaslights me and still tells me that my feelings are too much, or that I'm wrong, or never agrees with me or supports me. And how the person that may or may not be a narcissist is often usually a symbol of someone or something in our own history that is begging for some version of resolution and repair.
That is so true.
Call people a narcissist, fine, but like the focus can't just be on, and can you believe they did this, and that, and if they're doing this, and if they, you know, show me no empathy, that means they're a narcissist, and it was just so toxic, and blah, blah, blah. You know, that's really just information. But the real kind of core and meaning is the impact that all of those traits and dynamics has had on us, and what that parallels in our childhood.
Yeah, so why do you think that so many people, including me, guilty, I've done that, been there, done that, we know that a person is toxic or we know that a person is narcissist and we insist on that relationship. Like you see all the signs in front of your face and it takes a long time for a lot of people to get out of a toxic relationship. They like stick around for a long time.
Yeah, forever.
Yes, forever. Why do you think that is? I mean, because we know, right? You know something's bad for you. I mean, the word toxic. You know that person is bad for you. Why do we do that?
Well, again, it goes back to history. It goes back to history, and it also goes into the dynamic, what happens when you're with somebody who is harmful in that way, is that the relational dynamic then becomes structured around that harm, which creates a version of a cycle of abuse, which that means some version where there's intermittent reinforcement, where there's a high and a low and a high and a low and a chase that creates this cycle in our nervous system where the person is the person that causes the wounding, the hurt, but also the only person that can relieve the wounding and the hurt. And so because of that, our entire attachment system and nervous system then becomes oriented around relief seeking. And that relief, again, can only come from that person who is harming us. And so it's a cycle. People call this trauma bonds. And it's very real and very, very difficult to detach from. Some people call it an addiction. I don't love an addiction framework because it mimics addiction. It's not an addiction. But it's very similar to that. And that's why it's so difficult to leave. Because by the time we realize, oh fuck, this person is actually really, really bad for me and preventing me from growing and all of whatever else is happening, we're already hooked. It's not like we notice on date 3 and we're like, oh, okay,
yeah.
this isn't going to be good. I'm out. We notice 6 months in when the attachment has formed, you're saying I love you, the relationship's becoming integrated into your life, externally, internally, and it becomes very, very difficult.
Yeah, I think, at least for me, it was a component in my marriage. When I met my husband, he used to drink a little bit and then he drank more and more and more. The more money he made, the more he drank. He became an alcoholic. In my mind, I had this mindset, I guess. I thought the person is going to change for me because they love me. And I know a lot of people do that. Like nowadays, because I do the show and I get messages from people all over the world, a lot of women say that to me, like, oh, but he loves me so much. We believe this love and this relationship is going to change that person's behavior, whatever it is. In my case, my husband drank and became abusive. Sometimes the guy cheats and the woman thinks, oh, he loves me, he's gonna stop. The other day, this girl sent me this question: how do I make him stop cheating on me? Because he loves me, but he's cheating on me. And I mean, obviously, I think this is wrong, that we should not think that somebody's going to change for us, correct, Todd?
Well, it's not as simple. The idea of a relationship is that both people change. Relationships change us. Mm-hmm. But that's a different conversation than someone who harms us. The change that relationships bring, the healthy, the really kind of wonderful and beautiful change isn't about harm. It's just about, we become more honest, we face our stuff, you grow together, not you harm me and then you don't harm me. That's
right.
Different. That's usually a reenactment of trauma. And the thing when people say is he loves me, is what they're really saying is I've had good experiences with them where I've seen a different part of them. And that's made me feel loved.
Yeah.
And I have love for them, and it's an attachment, it's connection, and it's deep, and I don't want to lose them, and there's a lot of fear wrapped up in that. But the reality is that people are looking at potential. This is such a cliche line already, but it's true. I mean, the conversation around potential versus reality, and then also capacity, is that people are looking at potential and confusing that for capacity. The capacity isn't about, you can do this on Monday. Capacity is that you do this every day, is about consistency, especially when it comes to behaviors that harm others. It's not like you're just nice true. 3 days a week and then you're harmful 4. That's, yeah. And that's not to say that, oh, well, there's potential there. There actually isn't potential there. Because what you're talking about is we want capacity in a relationship. Capacity for consistent kindness, consistent presence, and consistent safety. That's the capacities we need, and capacity means every day. Every day someone is a safe partner. Not a perfect partner, but someone that isn't going to lash out, that isn't going to cheat, that isn't going to lie in ways that harm us, and isn't going to do this toxic shit that really wounds us.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is so true.
So, that's the real challenge here. And I've had the experience myself too, where I'm like, well, I've seen it. He can be super sweet, and then it just shifts. And then you chase that super sweet part, but it doesn't matter if someone's super sweet sometimes. It has to be all the time. Someone has to be nice to you all the time. They can't just be nice and then mean. Like, that's not a healthy or safe relationship, and that's not potential. That's reality, which is limitation and an unsafe partner.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you're saying that. Listen, it took me 15 freaking years to learn that and get the hell out. And I always say, I hope nobody takes as long as I did, because you're so right. You can't be walking on eggshells like Monday or through Friday or on the weekend. It's just impossible to live like that.
Yeah, and it takes everybody a long time. I think that I've had so much therapy, and I've had therapists that are like, well, this is an addiction, why do you keep doing this? This is bad for you, blah, blah, blah. And then I've also had therapists that have said, yes, this isn't ending in the result that you want, but this is part of the process. This is part of the process and the journey that you're taking to get to the other side. And I much prefer that than I didn't do this soon enough.
Oh yeah, totally. Now, do you think, because I'm not I'm not an expert, but I have a vibe that a lot of people stay in unhappy relationships, toxic relationships, whatever it is, simply because they are so afraid of being alone. That's another one that I get all the time. People send me messages like, oh, how do you sleep alone? Oh my God, I'm so scared. I'm so afraid to age alone. No. And I personally, in my journey, one of the most empowering, amazing things that I learned is to be happy on my own, like to actually enjoy my life and appreciate my company and not need a partner. I think that's a mistake. I think we should want a partner, but not need a partner. Do you, as a therapist, do you think that's a main reason why people stay? Because they are simply afraid of being alone?
Well, I think the fear of being alone is something that's just there for everyone, whether you're in a relationship or not. You can feel deeply alone lying next to somebody in bed, at night saying goodnight to somebody turning over, and you could cry and be completely alone and feel completely alone. So what we're really talking about is this, I kind of wrote about this in a Substack I posted this morning, but this emptiness, this hole that we all have, many of us, who didn't get nourishment and love and kindness in childhood, that creates this kind of this wound that we identify with and live by, which is I can't be alone, and I need something or someone to make me feel safe, and so it's something that really plays a big role in relationships and dynamics, and also why people stay in relationships and why people seek relationships. This kind of living from this wound-identified place of I can't be alone, I don't want to be alone, I'm afraid of being alone. And it's something that every single person will have to work through, no matter what their relationship status is.
How do they work through it?
Is. And they might work through it multiple times. Someone might work through it in their 20s, and then again in their 40s, and then again in their 70s. That this is just a part of what it means to be alive, is to grapple with our own solidarity, to grapple with our own aloneness. And it's a tough one, but it's not necessarily, it's kind of loneliness without resolution. That's something that we all kind of have to learn how to accept and live with. Because as you're saying, you learn to be alone and it feels good, but I'm sure there are days where you're like, fuck this, I don't want to be alone, I'd like to wake up in the morning with somebody. It's not this kind of
for sure,
constant state of, I love being alone.
Yeah, no, totally. But I don't feel, I never have this
right, there's
fear.
not that hunger.
Yeah, right. Well, like, people ask me, do you want a partner? I'm like, yeah, sure. But I know exactly what I want in a partner, and I have no problem waiting for it. I'm not going to be in a miserable, unhappy relationship, you know what I mean? And I enjoy being, I'm in a phase of my life that I learned, like I said, I enjoy being alone. I enjoy being independent, but
that's great.
I don't have the fear. Like, I never fear it. But I know a lot of people have that fear. How do you work through it? I guess you gotta do therapy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, a lot of it comes to go to therapy, read a book. Yeah, I mean, again, the fear, I think, is something that's going to just pop in and out throughout our lives. But how you work with it is, again, you know, understanding it and then being intentional with how you act and how you interact with the world in ways that can help you feel more grounded in yourself. So becoming more aware of what the story of being alone was like for you throughout your whole life. Like for me, I was deeply afraid of being alone as a kid. I couldn't go to sleep at night. I was afraid of the dark. You know, being alone has always been something that's been scary for me. But there's a very, very deep story to that. And so then understanding that's really important for everybody as to what it is, where does that fear come from, whatever. And then building a life, people, places, and things that help support those fears, not solve those fears, but support who you want to be in those fears, meaning support your independence, support your ability to say, I'm going to try new things and have enjoyable experiences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So.
A lot of people believe that they need a partner in order to be happy, especially women. A lot of women say, literally they say that out loud, like, I need someone, I need, oh my God, what am I gonna do? They have no identity without a partner. I mean, personally, I think that's a huge mistake. I think you need to be happy with your own life, you need to be happy with yourself, you shouldn't like think you need someone. I think that's a big difference between wanting and needing someone. I don't think if you're unhappy with your life, you know, I don't think you're gonna meet someone and they're gonna make you happy. Do you agree with me? What's your take on this one?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough because, yeah, there's a big difference between need and want. And it depends how deep the need is, you know, how hungry, how much of an ache, how much woundedness we feel in that I need, how incomplete or whole we feel. So it all really depends, but it's something to definitely look at. That some people do default to these places and they just stay there and they say, well, I need this, and they become defined by that I do not have value, I do not have worth, my life is not worth living if I'm not going to be in a relationship. What's the point? I'm going to be alone. I don't want to be alone at this age, at this age, at this age, at this age, whatever. A lot of people say these things and they just breeze right past it. But when you're saying these things, you really want to stop and be like, okay, well, what's going on for me here? You know, what is this really about? Is this about the fact that I really don't want to live without it if I'm not in a relationship? You know, is this about me feeling alone or disconnected from people? You know, what is this about? Because really what people are talking about is a life they haven't lived, right? It's just fear. I'm not going to be happy if I'm not in a relationship. Okay, well, you're not in that space now, so the better question is, what would make you feel happy, calmer today? You know, this kind of anticipatory fear about partnership and relationship status is a really big deal. You know, this kind of future tripping, the pre-disappointment, and the hopelessness. You know, it's a really big thing to flag. One, it's, you know, going to be an issue for you in your present if you're really creating this kind of a structure for yourself. Two, it prevents you from looking at yourself and your life or what you might add to make it more enjoyable or to make it feel fuller. And three, if you are approaching dating from this place, you may end up alone because
Yes.
you're approaching people with this kind of wound and desperation of, I can't be alone. And, you know, I was actually wrong. It's not that you'll end up alone, but you may end up in relationships that are defined by that wound, which isn't what you want either. So the real focus can't be on if in the future at some point or at this age or whatever. It has to be in today. What do I want today? If you're not in a relationship today, what, you know, sure, you can acknowledge the fact that you might be sad or upset if you never ever find a relationship ever again, but what's happening today? What are your plans? Who are you going to see? What are you going to do? What are you going to read? What are you going to cook? What are you going to do to make your life feel like you want to live it today? And so that's, you know, the challenge, and it's a cultural thing, is that we're all so, like, we're going through life at rapid speed, and we're also going through our predictions for our life at rapid speed, and those predictions are then shaping our present. So we really kind of have to slow the fuck down,
Yeah.
and see if we can be present in whatever's coming up for us now, understand that, and then do things that make today feel different.
Yeah, don't you think that the more we have going on with our own lives, if you're happy with your work, or if you're happy with your projects, if you take good care of yourself, if you have hobbies, friends, if you have good stuff going on that makes you happy on a daily basis, you are much more likely to find an amazing partner, an amazing relationship. Because this is how I'm thinking, like, a lot of people put all this responsibility into someone. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of single people, they think, oh, he's gonna solve all my problems. This Prince Charming is gonna come and he's gonna make everything better. And I think that's like completely unrealistic. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes, I agree. No one thing, no person, no dog, no piece of furniture, no beautiful bag nothing is ever going to do anything and fill that kind of a hole. Nothing is going to solve our life. So again, another thing to pay attention to if these are the thoughts or the things that we're telling ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. Now, a lot of people, same thing. I think all of us, right? If you're in a relationship at one point or another, you've been hurt. Maybe someone cheated on you. Maybe someone lied to you. Whatever it is that they did to you. So I see tons and tons of people repeating this question, like, this guy cheated on me. All men are pigs, or all women are gold diggers, because she did this and she did that. So they keep transferring this trauma into future relationships. Like, they already decided that everybody in the universe sucks. I have friends like that. I mean, I have a really good friend that he found out his wife was cheating on him. This was like a year ago. To this day, and I mean, he's dating all the women, but he treats women like shit now because he thinks, all women are like disgusting, assholes, cheaters. I mean, I think it's crazy to transfer what somebody did to us into new relationships. Do you agree? And is there any way to stop doing that?
Yeah, I mean, if this is something, this is how people live unconsciously. The unconscious is to live unconsciously is to do what your friend is doing, which is to transfer the unresolved into other people and to project the unresolved onto other people. But to be more conscious of that would be to understand, okay, I'm projecting this onto this person, I have work to do here. I have to work through whatever was broken, whatever hurt me, in past relationships and have a better understanding so I can show up in relationships and have a different outcome.
Yeah, how do you do that?
I think
Therapy?
It's a lot of therapy, yeah. I mean, a lot of reflection
Therapy.
and therapy and work to understand yourself.
Yeah. I think, at the end of the day, like, people that are really hurt, if you cannot resolve it on your own, it's probably a really good idea to seek therapy, right, Todd?
Yeah, I mean, it starts to sound a little cartoonish, but it's not false.
Yeah.
I mean, there are many ways to self-reflect and develop insight. You can read a book, you can take an online course, you could go on a retreat, you can do a bunch of different things. You could go on ChatGPT and ask them to give you a list of questions to reflect upon about why you are stuck. I have a course on being stuck. There are so many different things that you can do. It doesn't have to be formal therapy. But unfortunately, culturally, we don't have spaces for self-reflection, insight building, and action, self-help. We really don't. The only space is therapy or coaching. That's really it. And so that's where people go. Just like, where do you want to go if you're hungry? What are you going to do? What do you do? If someone said that, you go to the grocery store or you go to a restaurant. It's the same thing. If you have something's wrong with your body, you go to the doctor. If something's wrong with your mind and soul or spirit, you go to a therapist or someone else. But you do have to do something to work through these things. And so this comes back to the stigma part, the part that I don't need it, whatever. But, that's a lot of the answer to, well, what do you do? Comes down to that. It's like, well, what do you do if you have chronic constipation and, you know, like you go to the gastroenterologist. Maybe you need a colonoscopy. You do something. Otherwise, if you don't, you're going to be very uncomfortable. You're going to have stomach pains. You may not be able to participate in certain things because you can't sit for long enough. You might get hemorrhoids. You know, it could really get bad. So,
yeah,
you know,
but it's kind of like you said, when it comes to our mind, for some reason people don't take care of it as much as they should. Like you said, we take care of our bodies, but when it comes to your mind, you do nothing. Yeah. You think it's a cultural thing? Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, if we grew up with people being like, okay, Mondays are therapy days, or Mondays are self-work days in school, or like, you know, set an intention for the day, or literally anything. I think that would help teach all of us that our mind, our wishes, our longings, our feelings are important, but we don't. You know, we live in a world that's organized around productivity, around success, around money, around superficial shit.
Yeah. Needless to say, obviously, I think it's absurd. You think if somebody cheated on you and you decide, oh, everybody else is a cheater, or if you dated a pathological liar or a narcissist, you think like, oh, all men are going to do the same. You know, I mean, that's a crazy way of thinking, and I'm shocked how many people out there, once something happens to them, that's it, you know, they're like set for life, and they decide that's what somebody else is going to do to me.
Yes. I mean, that's how trauma works. You know, that's how, you know, if we experience trauma in childhood, that's the assumptions we make. That happens as an adult, same thing. But the thing is that we end up actually recreating the very dynamics by developing these rigid beliefs. Is that we develop a blind spot. When we say that everybody is like this, then we develop a blind spot where we can't really differentiate between the people that are actually like that and the people that are actually safe partners.
Yeah, I love that. Before I let you go, I want to ask you really quick about self-love, because I know you write about that all the time, and I think it's so important. But that's one of the things you wrote on your 2026 post, so maybe we can elaborate a little bit, because obviously I do think self-love is so important, right? If we don't love ourselves, I don't know how you expect someone to love you, but you always say, this one you wrote, stop obsessing about self-love. Self-love will not solve all your problems. It's not the holy grail to a challenge-free life. Can you explain to people out there listening what you mean by that?
Yeah, self-love is important. You know, it's like, yeah, okay, love yourself. Also understand that it's not like this chronic state of I'm in love with myself. Like it's a changing thing. But anyway, it's important. But I think the reason why I say that is because the way that self-love is presented is in this very isolated way. Like, it's something that you do in your journal. It's something that you do when you light a candle and you meditate for 20 minutes. It's something that you do when you, like, turn some nice music on, have some tea, and breathe deeply. It's something that, you know, that kind of a thing. Where self-love and self-care and self-nourishment get kind of collapsed into this category, and relationships, other people, and the world become separate. So where self-love, self, and other becomes separate. And so that's the problem with self-love these days, is that the self-love can never be separated from love for others, is that they're kind of co-occurring dynamics. You can't say I love myself and then isolate yourself from other people. That's not self-love at all. You can treat yourself with so much love, but if you're pushing other people away and you're isolating yourself, you're not loving yourself. So self-love involves relational love. And relational love involves self-love. So it's both. You know, we really should be talking about both. That you can't have self without the other. We're literally social creatures. You can't just isolate yourself and love yourself in isolation and heal yourself in isolation and then walk out the door and then interact with people. You kind of have to do it all at the same time.
I guess.
You know, you can't love yourself and then pick a partner that's a shitty partner. That's not self-love. You know, so it's about who we pick, the places we go to, the life that we create. It isn't just about a belief, because I think people think self-love is a belief. Self-love is an action. It's an action that we take with other people in the world and the things around us, and how that then impacts us, and that creates a cycle.
Wow, that's so powerful, and it's so important. So on that note, like you said, you know, you go out there, you practice self-love, and it's the beginning of the year. Of course, a lot of people are wondering, I don't want to make the same mistakes as last year. I want to find the right partner. I don't want to keep finding toxic people in my life. Are there any baby steps or any final message that you can send anyone out there listening? How do you go out the door and don't make the same mistake over and over and over again? I understand we're not supposed to be loving ourselves and staying home stuck with our dogs, like I do a lot, by the way.
Same.
The more I live, the
My
less
dog is
I
right
like
there.
people.
I know.
So it's a big problem for me because I'm like, oh my God, I can't deal with too many crazy people out there.
Very true.
What you just said like applies to me. I gotta make an effort and be more sociable than I am. But how do we, is there baby steps that we can avoid making the same mistakes? I mean, I think one goes without saying, like, don't ignore the red flags. If you see a red flag in someone, run, right? That's another mistake we make a lot.
Yeah.
But do you have any pointers?
I'm actually not going to answer the question, but I'm going to go a different direction.
Okay.
I'm going to say instead, you are going to make the same mistakes again. We all
okay.
make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Sometimes we learn our lesson and sometimes we don't. But I think the real important part is how you are with yourself when you make those mistakes. How do you treat yourself? What do you do? Do you shame yourself? Do you collapse? Do you withdraw from the world? Or do you use that as an opportunity to learn and grow? So I think that this is another thing that kind of the self-help stuff gets wrong, is, you know, this kind of repeating patterns over and over. Our whole life is a pattern of repetition, but it's what do we do with that repetition? And the repetition and the mistakes and the problems and the failures and the falling is all a huge important part of the process, because when we don't make those mistakes, we don't learn. And so make the mistakes, make them over and over again, but then do something with them. Turn them into some new learned insight or reality or action plan, etc. But definitely do not beat yourself up, because making the same mistakes again is just what it means to be a human being and alive, as we repeat and repeat, repeat, repeat until we change course, and then we repeat and repeat, and then we change course, and so what we have to really get rid of shame, and really, because that prevents us from learning and growing, and we're just shaming ourselves. And just try to understand yourself when you make these mistakes, and see and play with what happens if you can develop certain awareness and action plans. And if you make the same mistake again, there's something more there for you to learn.
I love that. That's very soothing. Last but not least, it breaks my heart when I hear someone out there saying, I've been burned so many times, that's it. I'm going to give up on love. That's it. I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. Yeah. I think we should never give up on trying to find love. I think it's a big part of life. I mean, there's some like super young girls. There's some girl that was on People magazine like a couple months ago. She's like in her late 20s, and she's like, oh, I've been so burned. I'm never going to... I'm like, are you kidding me? But do you agree with me? Should we like not give up on finding love, or it's okay that some people are just like, oh, I don't want to ever try this again?
Yeah, I mean, fear is pretty strong. I mean, I think the thing is we've really forgotten how to go through normal cycles in our life of rupture and repair. No matter whether it's love or job loss or something, we're always going to get hurt. So we've really become so averse to pain and any kind of discomfort that oftentimes people will say, I'm never doing this ever again. And they don't, or they avoid dating for years. And, I think that's not to say that's wrong. For some people, that's, I guess, what works for them. But, so much what you're saying, for you, for me, that's not a realistic plan for us.
No, yeah.
So, we do have to develop, resiliency in the face of being hurt. And so a lot of people just can't tolerate it. And they're saying, I just don't want to tolerate it. And I think we've created a lot of people in this culture who completely just avoid, shut down, withdraw. It's too much. I'm not going to do it. They download an app. They talk to somebody. And then they say, you know what, no, this doesn't make any sense for me. And this is why so many people are avoidant. Is because they're avoidant and so fearful that they totally just check out. So, I think it's an important thing to face the thing that we say we're never going to do it again, unless we're actually talking about touching a hot stove and getting burned or something like that. But when it comes to like heartbreak, something like that, or disappointment, you know, it's something to really try to understand, because you can avoid dating and you can have plenty of heartbreak in other areas of your life, with your friends, with your colleagues, just in general as a person living in this world. I mean, so there's really no way to avoid pain. So this kind of pain avoidance thing is a really big problem.
Yeah, I love that. I totally agree with you. Guys, his Instagram is 𝑦𝐷iagNonsense. Fantastic posts every single day. Congratulations on the amazing work you do. Thank you for all your expert insight. I appreciate it so much. And I guess all the links for people to find you and find your courses are on your Insta, right, Todd?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Guys, Happy New Year. It's such a pleasure being here with you again. And be safe out there. And I'm going to say, never give up on love.
Yes.
Thank you.
Don't give up.
Thank you, Todd. It was such an honor having you. Be safe out there. I'll see you guys very soon.